The life and survival of migrants in diaspora, most especially Nigerian migrants, is what we're going to be talking about in the next couple of minutes. Now, joining us virtually from Sweden this morning, we're so privileged to have Ikponsa Igage. Mr. Ikponsa, a very good morning to you.
Yeah, thank you once again. Good morning, and thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah. All right, so we are looking at the life and survival of migrants. We back home, we hear all that you go through, and of course, how it is. I mean, it takes, in the first place, most times it takes several years before your immigration status is determined. I mean, talking about residency and of course at times even talking about citizenship. Now tell us, what are the issues, life outside the shores of the country as a migrant? How is it like?
Well, I think that's where United Nations actually classifies people who are actually outside their habitual place of residence, precisely. So it depends on the class of visa you actually own, precisely, and there are several classes of visas. Are you coming as a student? Are you coming to work based on skilled visa, a doctor, a nurse, or any healthcare practitioner, any other field generally? So it depends. And some come with visiting visa, tourist visa. So there are several classes. And they actually have how this thing actually gravitates towards the PRO and from PRO to citizenship. So it's actually a process, actually a process-based system. So a process-based system. So as far you are legal in the country. So it's based on the visa classes, I must say.
Okay. Now, talking about being legal in the country, because we understand back home in Nigeria that one of the ways that migrants, Nigerian migrants now, do make their stay to be legal, outside is, through marriage status. Maybe you have to marry a citizen of where you are staying and all that. Now, tell us, the concern again about that is that most times it amounts to not even coming back home again. I mean, a good number of Nigerians have left the shores of Nigeria and they may not return again.
Well, as I said previously in our show some time ago, like it's a thing of choice, and it's a thing of choice, and it's a thing of choice, and it's a decision. So you can't actually take that away from people. And so there are several reasons that actually spur migration. Even in the developed and developing country, people move around, and sometimes it could be conflict related. You could have climate related disaster that could spur migration. You also have economic pressures too, which actually leads to migration too. I think the migration will actually be concerned about here. It's more of like the regular migration, the legal migration, because we also have the illegal migration. So we're concerned here about the legal migration. And as far as people do things that are legal and keeps them in the country, that's okay. My team, for example, now is running a consultant for a company, and it was more of like a Tanzania student, a PhD student who came to Sweden, doing a program in space technology, and while running his PhD program, and from there he invented a technology whereby he could communicate with your satellite in space. It's more of like a ground-based technology that could actually help you communicate with the satellite in space. And today now he started a company in Sweden and has a Swedish partner, and it's running as a startup already. So I think for us, if we're looking at the contribution opportunities of migrants, those are the kind of stories we want to tell about Nigeria, about Africa. And we also have to see how we can deal with the illegal migration. Whether people want to come back or they want to stay where they are, I think that's a thing of choice. Because I always say when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive. It's a Chinese proverb. So when they feel their countries are ready for them to come back, come and help develop, they will actually see how they can put resources, put technology, and pull them investors to come solve problems or create value in their home country. So their going back home is based on if the student is ready, the teacher will arrive. So if the government is ready, there are citizens who will decide to return back home to come solve more problems for them.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Akmonsa, let's talk about issues around discrimination, because we know that is a big issue with Nigerian migrants outside the country. Now, oftentimes we hear that at times, you guys are even told that, hey, you really don't belong here. Now, tell us, issues around discrimination. You call it racial discrimination and all that. How are you guys handling it outside the country?
Um, in terms of racial discrimination, actually, where I am precisely in Sweden, I think for me, I would say they're actually very, very fair people, and then they treat you according. They give you your rights and they respect you. There are countries naturally whereby they are not really tolerant of people of color. So I think, and these are part of the research people actually have to do before they consider migration to certain countries. You have to look at, okay, what's it like? Are they actually tolerant of people of color? Do they actually accept them? So these are some things you actually have to look at. For Sweden, I can tell you, we actually have people of color here. They're actually well integrated into our system here because they have a history by they actually brought people based on conflict, like the Somalis, the Eritreans. When they had issues back home, I think the Swedes actually did send aeroplanes to go get them, bring them based on humanitarian grounds to Sweden. So a very, very long time ago. So you actually have Eritreans or Somalians who are actually citizens who are actually ingrained into the Swedish society. So it's more of like those people they actually brought in actually created a more diverse society because initially they're actually homogeneous people. So with that, we can say it's a diverse society. It's a diverse society in Sweden. So I think for me, people traveling, they have to look at what the tolerance level of these countries they're actually going to, whether they're actually very, very discriminatory or they don't accept people of color. They actually have to look at these things because there are countries like that. And if you decide to go there, you just have to deal with it.
Okay, okay. Now, quickly tell us, what kind of policies do you think government back home should be thinking of? Maybe putting in place those policies now and relating with where the government has Nigerian migrants, so that where you stay can be more habitable. Policies back home by the Nigerian government. What kind of policies?
Whereas as regards policies back home, I think for me to actually revolve around the economy precisely. Because I think for us back home, it's not conflict is not really an issue for us. Climate related disasters are not really an issue. It's mainly around the economy. We really have to look at our economy at the three layers of government. The federal, the state, and the local government level. We have to look at the economy, be able to attract investment based on our comparative advantage as regards the states, and be able to create jobs, to grow your IGR, support entrepreneurship. It's actually very, very, very key here, I must say. Because even in the university where I study here, there's a department whereby that supports entrepreneurship, new business, incubators. You're able to write your business plans, the government is able to support you with the startup capital and so many things. That's from the university level itself. So I'm not talking about the local government or the state. This is just from the university. So for us, entrepreneurship remains the goals, and the government has to fix the building block for industrialization in the economy. And that brings us to the certain level of taxes, the tax exemptions you have to create to kind of encourage small and medium scale enterprises because they're actually the backbone of every economy. So for me, it's actually in summary or in a nutshell, our revolves around the economy. The three layers of government have to actually fix the building blocks and create an enabling environment for the economy to thrive. And the access to capital, that's very, very key, I must say. So for me, it's all about economy.
Okay. All right. So one more question now. How do you deal with it is still somehow related to discrimination because back home here, we hear that in some countries you have settlements for migrants. I mean, does it not bother you that there are settlements for migrants?
In Sweden, they're actually very, I would like to say, they're actually very, very fair to migrants because my colleague was telling me about, I think in Nigeria, they were working on a papers as regards the decision for asylum. And I think it was obvious they were not going to grant her the asylum, and I think she has children. So they offered her 90,000.
All right, Mr. Ekwansa, we were looking at, talking about migrants as settlements in places. How do you react to that?
Well, migrant settlement in place differ from country to country. For Sweden, they're actually very fair when they're settling migrants. Like I said, before they process the application, they actually do give them a house, which is being paid for by the government, a monthly stipend, and then they actually do enroll them in the school to learn the Swedish language. So from there, they can work while they are processing the application. So for Sweden, it's kind of fair or in as much as the current government is actually wants to cut down on the number of migrants they take per year. So they're actually very strict about that. So the policy for Sweden is changing. But when it comes to treatment of migrants, I can tell you they are very fair. Before we went on the break previously, I told you about the Nigerian. They actually did offer over 120,000 SEK in anticipation that she would take that because they don't see her application scaling through for stay. And which I think, unfortunately, she did decline that. And but in terms of going back home, they've actually got her a flight ticket for her and her children to come back home. So as regards treatment of migrants in Sweden, it's actually very good. And in some few European countries, it's well to do. So when they're sending you back home, they actually send you back home with dignity. And then for me, I always emphasize on people who want to come around the show, always try to come to the regular route, the legal route, with purpose, for studies, for work, based on skilled jobs and others. And for those who are coming with visiting or tourist visa, they should try to when they're done, it's either they go back or they can find other opportunities that keep them legal in the country so that they don't become illegal migrant to the country. And wherever they are, they should always try to add value and make a good representation of the country called Nigeria. And God going to bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Okay. All right. So maybe one day I may also be a migrant in Sweden, so that we'll continue together as migrants.
It's not a bad status. It's not a bad status. People are contributing magnificently to the Swedish society and in other European countries and around the world. Okay. The Nigerians are really doing great things.
All right, so I want to say thank you and a happy Migrants Day. So please be law abiding and ensure that as a Nigerian, you must uphold the pride of this country, Nigeria.
Sure. Thank you once again.
All right, so thank you. All right, so thank you.